Hi, I'm Crystal, the parenting coach. Parenting is a thing that some of us just expected to know how to do. It's not like other areas of your life where you go to school and get taught, get on-the-job training, or have mentors to help you. But now you can get that help here. I believe that your relationship with your children is one of the most important aspects of your life and the best way that you can make a positive impact on the world and on the future. I've made parental relationships my life study, and I use life coaching tools, emotional wellness tools, and connection-based parenting to build amazing relationships between parents and their children. If you want an even better relationship with your child, this podcast will help you. Take my parenting quiz at the link in the show notes. Once we know what your parenting style is, we will send some tips tailored to you and a roadmap to help you get the most out of my podcast. Welcome to today's podcast episode, Key Ingredients to Healthy, Intimate, and Thriving Partnerships with Sara Nasserzadeh. In this interview, you are going to hear all about Sara and her new book and how writing it, she had the idea to base it less on what are these problems we can get rid of in partnerships and how can we focus on what thriving relationships have and implement any of those ingredients into ours. She also talks about what those core ingredients are of intimate relationships, and she gives you exercises to get started after decades of research that she's done with couples. She talks about expanding your touch lexicon with your partner to increase that physical communication and get you on the same page physically, how to move from being roommates and just liking your partner to being in love again, and why our nervous system can be dysregulated around our partners and how we can change that. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast episode. We have not had an interview in a while, so I am very excited to bring my friend Sara Nasserzadeh. Did I say it right?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, good. So if you have been listening to the podcast for a while, you've probably heard my friend Monica from About Progress. I've interviewed her a couple times over the last few years. And she reached out and she was like, you have to have Sara on your podcast. She is so good. And I checked her out and I was like, yep, this is perfect. So I cannot wait to dive in and talk about all things relationships and ask her any question that comes to mind about relationships because she's such an expert. Do you want to first just introduce yourself a little bit and what you do?
Sure. Hello, everyone out there. And thank you, Crystal, for having me. I'm Sara Nasserzadeh. I have a PhD in social psychology, and I specialize in sexuality, relationships, and intercultural fluency. So I'm not kidding when I say ask me any questions that relates to relationships from bedroom to the boardrooms. So let's dig in.
I love it. Okay. So I want to dig into your book. So that is something that's been new, right? Did that just come out? It is just coming out. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The new one is called Love by Design, 6 Ingredients to Build a Lifetime of Love, which is based on 2 decades of working with couples across 40 countries, 2 significant pieces of research that when we ask the couples, how do you thrive in this relationship? Not only survive. So that's what I'm offering in this book.
I love it. So what I find is oftentimes when I'm coaching, especially when I'm coaching couples, but even just individually, when there's kind of issues related to parenting coming up, a lot of times there's kind of just relational issues across the board. And so I would actually really love to dig into this topic because I think that it is really helpful to not only just listen to the parenting aspect of it, but also to dig into our partner relationships as well. So I would love to dig into that with you. And if you are listening to this episode and you're like, I don't have this relationship right now or whatever, I think that we will touch on points that will help you in the future and regardless of what life stage you're at right now. So let's dig into those 6 ingredients then. And I would love to hit on also the research, what the research is showing as well when it comes to relationships.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, as in your podcast, I'm assuming you're mostly talking about parenting and coaching people. When we talk about coaching and parenting or any kind of relationship, the first thing that we need to pay attention to is people who are involved, the individuals, and also the dynamics that they have, and the resources that are involved, currencies that are at play. So these are the things that we look at, right? So for example, resources, the way that I divide them are time, energy, attention, and money, because these are the ones that we don't have unlimited of. So we need to really decide intentionally every day, where do I put any of this, right? So that's one, resources. The other one is we wanted to see why relationships thrive, because majority of research to this date, they are focusing on what is not working, what is wobbly, right? But that was not good enough for me, or I didn't want that for my clients. I want to give something to people to say, hey, this is the roadmap to success, to be individually thriving as well as a couple. So when we flip the question, 6 ingredients started to emerge: attraction, respect, trust, compassion, shared vision, and loving behavior. So these were the 6 ingredients. And then if you really think about it, in any relationship, you need some versions of these for the relationship to come together and to thrive. And we can go to the research, but it's online. It's on relationshippanoramic.com. If people go to it, they will see the whole research. For the nerds out there, the
really
technical
want to dive into the
out
research. I love that idea. And I love the idea of, we're not asking like what's going wrong, because I think we do that often. We're just like pathologizing everything. Okay, these are all of the things we want to like somehow code out of the programming within ourselves, our relationships, whatever. Let's see what we can do differently. But I love the flipping that question to be like, what makes it thrive and how can we add those ingredients into our lives? Let's dig into each one. So what was the first one that you mentioned?
Sure. Can I just first give you the framework? Because I think if we have the framework, it makes more sense for people. Because, you know, when I say attraction, we heard about it before. Respect, we heard about it before. But what is different this time? Because I'm really claiming that I'm offering a new model of love. So basically, the way that many of us grew up, we grew up thinking 1 + 1 = 1. So 2 people come together of opposite sex, meet and then fall in love, become one. So 1 + 1 = 1. And then the rest is history. But in this model, which is based on the systems theory, it's a pretty solid foundation, scientific foundation. What I'm offering is wrong math, but good relationship. 1 + 1 = 3. And what I mean by that is any kind of in-laws, pets, children, anything that you need to take care of, anything that requires resources from each of you goes into that third circle. So that's really important. The first one, 1 + 1 = 1, I call submergent love. So in a way, we're submerging into one another, codependency, all of those good stuff happen in that, right? I hope my voice shows that it's ironic when I say good stuff, right? That's not very good. So on the other side of it, 1 + 1 = 3. That is the model that we are aspiring to, and that's the emergent love. So basically, all these 6 ingredients need to be present. Yes, people, all of them non-negotiable, in consistent and continuum interaction with one another with quality. Then we are going to give love a chance to even exist. So that's a complete shift of mind. Submergent versus emergent.
Okay. So when we go through the ingredients, I would love for you to share kind of the difference. Like maybe what would this look like in submergent versus emergent, so that we have a better idea of that.
Absolutely. So there are some relational configurations that I'm offering in the book. For example, if people imagine that there are 2 circles separate from one another. So I call them friends with benefit. There are others that are coming a little bit, touching a little bit, having some shared space, but not really. That's the conventional couple, that contemporary couple, so to speak, that many people think that we have a shared space and we have some of ourselves left too. Right. And then submergent, there are 2 circles. Imagine that they're very much intertwined, almost overlapping with one another. So there are 8 categories that I offer for people. By the way, there is no right or wrong in relational spaces. I don't want to come across as, oh, this is the only model. The problem is we don't have any new model. Everything evolved. Everything has a plan in life, like from meal planning and, exercise planning, travel, everything. But for love, when it comes to love, one of the most important aspects of our lives, we have no planning. So this is for people who would like to build something rather than experience, just, go after experiences in life. But there's no judgment, right? Now, the difference. At the end of the day, when you experience emergent love in your relationship, what you feel on a daily basis is feeling seen. You have a peace of heart, clarity of mind. You have all of those resources that I mentioned allocated in a way that are fulfilling and rewarding for you and your partner and the coupledom together and everybody involved, right? So that is the difference. In submergent love, however, people fight over fairness. This is not fair. People fight over chores. People fight over, am I seen? Am I loved? Am I being celebrated for who I am? There's a lot of trauma bonding these days, for example. We share of our childhood trauma and drama and, whatnot. All of that has its space. However, on the other side of it, what makes you thrive and feel fulfilled is not only that, it's also, what is it that I'm proud of about myself? And are you proud of it too? When we are in a coupledom, are you celebrating for whatever that I'm celebrating for myself? Or should I hide it from you because they're not acceptable, let alone celebrated? Mm-hmm. So these are the fundamental differences that you see in couples who could accumulate the emergent love versus people who put all of their efforts and exhaust themselves, think they do all the things they can for the relationship, but because the efforts are not put in the right place, they feel out of place, they feel out of source, and nothing is moving, and they're not thriving.
Mm. Yeah, I love that description of the difference. I love the idea of, can you celebrate me? Like, here is my celebration. I'm happy for me. Do I hide that, or can I give that to you also, and we can celebrate together? So let's dig into a little bit of the ingredients, and then I would love to kind of help you have you give us some helpful tips if people do feel like they want to move from surviving to thriving. So let's dig into each, just kind of give a little brief overview of what your description of them is and how it's a little bit different.
Absolutely. I think this is the third time you asked that question, and I'm finally going to answer that.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So in no particular order, if we go to attraction determines, why do I want to be around you? Why do you want to be around me? Right. So it's simple. Mm-hmm. Although I wrote a whole chapter on it, but if people can only remember this, that would be really good. And then we're going to differentiate between attraction and intimacy, desire, and arousal. And we're going to talk about sexual attraction as a small part of this whole umbrella of attraction that happens between two people who are going to build a life together. Mm. So that's attraction. Why do you want to be around each other? And then if attraction doesn't translate into intimacy, into me I see, into me you see, because I allowed you, I know myself enough, and I opened the door in a safe space for you to see me, celebrate me, then attraction continues and evolves. But if I just base my whole criteria of wanting to be around you based on that physical attraction or sexual attraction or initial attraction, as we evolve as humans, go through different seasons and phases of life, inevitably we're going to lose it. Mm-hmm. And that's when couples end up in my office that I love them, but I'm not in love with them. Mm-hmm. So that's attraction. When we talk about respect, we're talking about, where do you allocate your resources? Am I a priority for you? Do you hear me when I talk about my boundaries? Are you able to be respectable, respectful? Are you a person that I could respect? Do you respect yourself? How are you holding your boundaries? Lovingly and firmly, or passive aggressive? Mm-hmm. So that's that, respect. With trust. When it comes to trust, two words I want people to remember: reliability and consistency. And trust is not just having fidelity or infidelity, as it is known in the trendy culture. It's about social trust. If I tell you something tonight in your arms, am I going to hear it from your aunt tomorrow? Mm-hmm. So that's sort of, social and financial, emotional, relational, sexual, all of that, a combination of the trust based on the agreement that you have with one another. And reliably and consistently, we show up for it. Compassion. A lot of couples relate to one another, which we do as human beings. For example, you say, Sarah, I'm hungry. I immediately, by default, as another human, I think, but I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
That's the default, right? You see it in a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old.
Yep.
But as we evolve, we move beyond relating, right? What we do is we also cultivate empathy. So we feel with the other person, which is great, but there's a little too much of it in the intimate relationships these days. And allow me to express, because this is controversial for some people, depending on how they define it. I think that on everyday basis, based on our research also, we need more compassion, showing up for the other without making it about ourselves. So if you come to me and say, Sarah, you hurt me, I should be able to hold the space for you, hear you out. I should be able to be there for you, not making it about me. So I'm not going to feel with you. I'm going to feel for you. That's the difference. But if you are in an intimate space, in a sexual space, you want to feel with each other, the erotic empathy, for example, go for it. It's going to create magic. But on everyday interactions, compassion is the way to go. Compassion is showing up for one another without making it about ourselves.
I love that
Right?
definition. I've heard a few different definitions of compassion, and one is kind of connecting to the emotion behind what someone's going through. And I think compassion is like the number one goal I have for parenting. Whenever I can move into that energy myself, I always parent in the way that I want to. It's like how to move into that energy is usually the question for me. So I love that idea of compassion being something that we can feel for them, feel that feeling with them, but not be, I guess, totally taken over by the emotion.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And when we go to parenting, getting to that space, if I may offer something,
Mm-hmm.
when you remind yourself that I'm the mother, I'm the parent figure here, I'm the parent, you abide by the rules that are defined by your role, however that you define it. Then you're grounded and you can present yourself with compassion. But parents who lose their thing around their children, those are the parents who are emotionally, they're not regulated enough.
Mm-hmm.
And majority of them, it comes out of good place because they are over empathizing with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things that if we can really, that's my hope, to offer a new discourse around generally misunderstood concepts that can actually help people with their peaceful and harmonious connections with one another in any space. So
Mm-hmm.
that's compassion. Last but not least is the loving behavior. Loving behaviors have a certain quality to them that you can't see it in other behaviors or actions. For example, when you are loving towards a person, especially in a romantic partnership, you're tender. You give them benefit of the doubt. You go out of your way. You're exclusive with your words, with your touch, in a way that they make them special. So when I say exclusive, it doesn't mean that when you have 2 children or 5 children, or if you are in polyamorous relationship, you can't really offer the same touch to the same person, to another person. But it's important for people to know that this is a touch that is preserved for this loving, exclusive space. So this is not, I have so many couples that tell me over the years, and it's so interesting that we don't really pay attention to it. But I have couples who tell me, my husband calls our cat a darling and calls me darling too. Or the nicknames that they have for one another. So these are, we need to pay attention to them if we want to elevate the relationship into a loving and romantic and special relationship. So that's how I would describe these 6 ingredients in
Okay,
few
thank
words.
you. And we'll also have a link to her book if you would love to learn more about this and read it all. I would love to go back to the first ingredient you talked about, attraction, because I see that often in people that I talk to, both just in my regular life and also in my coaching life of this. Yeah, we like each other and we do feel somewhat of a connection, but we're mostly like roommates. We're not really like in love anymore. So for somebody that feels that way, especially I think it happens when maybe you've been together for a while. Maybe you have lots of children and there's like busyness happening all of the time. Maybe you are really invested in work. And so you're not spending as much time together as you used to. What would you say to people like this? Like, we have all of these ingredients, but what do they actually do now to help them move from that space of just being roommates who like each other to being in love again?
There's a lot that we can unpack there. And there's a whole chapter on physical connection that I have in the book. I invite people to go and explore it. But if I want to give people one exercise is, look, when we live together for a long time, our nervous system is going to resonate with one another. This is what happens for many people, right?
Yeah.
So it's as if I'm tickling myself. I'm not going to laugh. It's not going to make anything, it's not going to arouse me in any way, right? Because being tickled, being nervous, all of that are agitation to the nervous system in one way or the other, depending on how we interpret it, right? So that's one, familiarity. Familiarity happens for some couples. For some other couples, one thing that happens is they are actually quite alienated with one another. Over the years, they might intellectually, relationally, even emotionally like each other. Their bodies don't like each other anymore. Because maybe you snore, you wake me up every night. My body does not like your body, right?
Yeah.
Or for example, you're shouting too much. My body is scared when is around your body. So these are the nuances that I want. Again, I talk about it a lot. But let me give people one exercise that they can do after our conversation today. I give my couples this exercise that I call touch lexicon. By the same token that I say choose wisely when it comes to nicknames and terms of endearment or however that you address each other, I want people to expand their lexicon, touch lexicon. The way that you touch your son, you might go and kiss their forehead to put them to bed. But if you do the same exact thing to your husband, it might be comforting when they're not feeling good or they have fevers or, whatever, endearing, right? But that's not necessarily an invitation to come and let's have hot sex. So whatever touch that we give to one another is calling out a certain action or role in the other person. So that's important for us to remember. So the exercise that I give to my couples is just carve some time, 10 minutes. I'm not asking for too much. And go in a place that you're not interrupted, maybe on your bedroom, on your bed in the bedroom or in a hot tub, bathtub, whatever that works for you. And start giving each other certain touches and have the other person guess, what kind of a touch am I giving you? Let's say, for example, you're thinking that you are giving passionate touch to the other person. And the other person says, oh, you just told me I'm a very good mother. Thank you. Right? So there is so much discrepancy there that I can't even tell you. That when couples come back, they have so much that they learned about each other. So that would be really helpful exercise just to start people off.
Yeah, just so that we're on the same page about what it is that we're trying to communicate. I love that idea of it being a touch lexicon. Like, this is what this touch means. And I also thought it was interesting what you said, how our bodies might not be attracted anymore. Our bodies might have some sort of a nervous system response that isn't necessarily happening intellectually. If people find that that is happening for them, besides this touch lexicon, where would they start to kind of build that again so that their bodies can be, attracted, to feel more calm, to feel more regulated around their partner?
First and foremost, bring your bodies together and see how you feel. And you need to have a level of communication with one another to be able to do this. Not everybody feels safe to do this. There's another chapter here that I wrote about conflict, because you cannot be talking about any kind of relationship without giving people some tools to know their conflict management styles, as well as how to regulate themselves and the other person, for that matter. One of the basic exercises I give to people is to sit back to back and try to breathe, see what comes up for you. See if you can tolerate the temperature of the other person. And do you feel safe? Do you feel okay? When I feel safe, again, the word safe, I have issues with, because they're not going to put us on fire. And, having domestic violence or violent in a relationship is not as common as we might think. However, there are relationships out there that make you so unsafe just by the person shouting off the top of their lungs, or throwing stuff, or stern look that they give you, or constantly you feel like you're under their thumbs, that your body doesn't really feel like you can put your guards down. So just to begin with, can you sit back to back, breathe for a couple of minutes and see what comes up? Some people giggle, some people cry. That's the release of the nervousness of the nervous system, right? That's a release of anxiety for the body. And then we'll take it from there. But there are ways that people can come together if they wish to, and little by little paying attention to the details and bring the bodies together to be around each other first, and then like each other, and then, God knows, bring each other pleasure.
And do you talk about these kinds of exercises throughout the book?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I actually recommend people don't get overwhelmed. Just read one chapter at a time, because I put 20 years of practice into this and 2 pieces of research. So I wrote it to be the book that my son will pick up when it's his time to go to to create relationships for himself, because the wisdom that we have around relationship is timeless. And this could really carry people over time. And I wanted to put it all in here so that they have something, a reference to go back to, all explained, not just a theory. I want people to have fluency and literacy.
I love that idea. And so if you're listening to this, grab Sara's book and just do one chapter at a time. Just read through it, do some of the exercises, and just see what comes up. I love these little tidbits of exercises you've given us. They're so different, I think, than other experts that I've talked to about this. Usually it's more like in the logical space, like thinking about it and talking about it. But I love these physical exercises we can do, because really, if our nervous system feels dysregulated, it's not going to be so much explaining to our brain that it should feel calm, right? It's going to be doing something more in our body. So I love those tips that you gave us. And for anyone that wants to reach out and connect with you or work with you, do you work with people only in your own state, or how does that work?
Well, I don't offer psychotherapy. I offer coaching and consulting, and to keep my practice global. And if there's a need for people, I refer them to people who do mental health practices. And but usually I get referrals from other colleagues, because there are certain things that a coach can do, consultant can do, that a therapist can't do, and other way around.
Yeah.
But as a matter of offering, actually, I would love people, if they want to see where they are in their relationship and to keep it positive, I would love to offer people to do the relationship panoramic inventory if they are in a coupledom. What it does is that it's about 9 pages. It's not overwhelming as you think. It's all visual. Majority of it is visual. Just to show you what are the areas that you're very strong at as a couple. Let's say, for example, the trust is really strong. The shared vision is very strong. And maybe your physical connection is not very good. Or maybe there are certain temperaments, like thinking style, that you need to work on and make sync with one another. So I'm going to, on every podcast that I go, I also offer them, the discount for the relationship panoramic, to see if people like to take it. Okay. And if they consent, they can receive it. They can, the couple can receive the results. If they're working with somebody like yourself, they can provide your name, the report comes to you, and then you can sit with them, sit with the couple and, go through it with them.
That sounds like such a great resource. We will have all of these links, the links to her book and to this resource as well in the show notes if you want to find them there. And how do they connect with you on social media? You're on Instagram, I know. What is your handle again?
Oh, it's Dr. Sara Nasserzadeh. And that is on Instagram, Facebook, wherever that people are. But if they want to receive resources, I recommend that they join the newsletter, because I don't remember, to be honest, too. Although through social media, they will know when the newsletter goes out. But within the community, I will share, anything new that I write. Like, for example, I wrote recently about jealousy and envy. And I'll walk people through literacy to fluency.
That sounds so good. Okay. So everybody get on her newsletter. We will have a link for that as well in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing about your new book. And I love that, value behind writing your book in, like, I want something for my son to be able to go back to, and this is what I want for him. And That's just lovely. And I can't wait to have this podcast episode go out and be able to really help people that are in these relationships where we don't want to just try and figure out how do we survive? How do we, code out all of these things from programming that we don't want, but how do we actually bring ingredients into our relationship that help us to thrive? So thank you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Crystal.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to help spread this work to the world, share this episode on social media and tag me. Send it to a friend or leave a quick rating and review below so more people can find me. If you'd like more guidance on your own parenting journey, reach out.